When you really boil it down, system dynamics is all about two powerful opposing forces. Today, we're going to explore the very engine of system behavior, the feedback loops that create both explosive growth and unwavering stability in the world around us. So think about this for a second. What could possibly connect the wild, runaway growth of a startup with, say, the perfectly stable temperature in the room you're in right now? Well, it turns out they're both governed by the exact same underlying principle: feedback. At its core, feedback is a circular process. It's right there in the definition. An initial cause ripples through a system and eventually circles back to affect itself. It's not a straight line of cause and effect, it's a closed loop. Okay, let's make this super clear by comparing an open loop to a closed one. Imagine you're cold, so you put on a sweater. Your action doesn't actually change the room's temperature, right? That's an open loop. A thermostat, on the other hand, is a perfect example of a closed loop. It senses the temperature, it takes an action, like turning on the furnace, and then it senses the result of that action. It's a continuous, self-regulating cycle. That is feedback in action.
All right, so let's dive into the first of these two major forces: positive feedback. This is the real engine of growth. Now, a super important thing to get right away: positive here doesn't mean good, not at all. It just means it reinforces or amplifies whatever is happening. A little change in one direction leads to even more change in that exact same direction. The classic example is a snowball rolling downhill. As it gets bigger, it picks up even more snow, which makes it get bigger even faster. So let's see what this looks like using a classic stock and flow structure. Imagine our stock is just a population of E. coli bacteria. The inflow that grows the stock is reproduction. But here's the critical feedback link. The size of the stock itself, the number of bacteria you have, directly determines the rate of that inflow. More bacteria leads to a higher rate of reproduction, which creates this powerful self-reinforcing cycle. Okay, so you have this structure where growth literally fuels more growth. What kind of behavior do you think that's going to create over time? You got it. The result is pure exponential growth. The population doesn't just add a few new cells here and there, it compounds on itself. I mean, look at those numbers. Starting with just 100 cells, this reinforcing loop makes the population explode to over 25,000 in only 4 hours. This classic J-curve shape is the unmistakable signature of any system dominated by positive feedback. So that's one side of the coin, the force of growth. But what about its opposite? Well, that's the force of balance. While positive feedback is all about reinforcing change, negative feedback is all about counteracting it. It creates stabilizing, goal-seeking behavior. Let's take a look at how that works. So let's dig into that second force, negative feedback. This is the secret sauce for regulation, for stability, and for control in pretty much any system you can think of. And yeah, you guessed it. Just like before, negative here does not mean bad. It simply means it counteracts or negates a change. The way it works is that the system senses a gap between where it currently is and where it wants to be, its goal, and then it takes action to close that gap and get back to balance. Let's go back to our stock and flow model to see this in action. The stock, this time, is a bunch of radioactive nuclei. The outflow is the process of decay. Now here's the feedback link. More nuclei means a higher rate of decay. But, and this is the huge difference, this action reduces the stock, which creates a balancing process, not a reinforcing one. So, what does the behavior look like when a system is constantly trying to shrink itself based on how much of it is left? What you get is this pattern of an asymptotic approach to a goal. You can see how the decay rate is fastest at the beginning, right? When the stock is biggest. Then it slows down as it gets closer and closer to its goal, which in this case is 0. This graceful curve towards a target is the clear signature of a dominant negative feedback loop. And this isn't some abstract physics concept, right? This happens in our own lives. I mean, think about dieting. Your stock is your current weight, and you've got a goal weight in mind. The action you take, dieting, is driven entirely by the gap between where you are and where you want to be. The bigger that gap, the more motivated you are. As you get closer to your goal, your effort might decrease, creating that exact same asymptotic curve. Okay, so we've got these two fundamental forces. We have reinforcing loops that just want to drive growth, and we have balancing loops that are all about creating stability. The big idea, the key insight here, is that the really complex, interesting behaviors we see all around us, they emerge from the interplay between these two.
All right, time for a quick pop quiz. I'm going to show you a simple system, and I want you to figure out if it's a loop of growth or a loop of balance. Ready?
Okay, here it is. The system is a rabbit population. The stock is the number of rabbits. The inflow is births. And here's the crucial link. A bigger rabbit population leads to a higher birth rate. So, what do you think? Growth or balance? If you said positive feedback, you nailed it. It's a classic reinforcing loop. More rabbits mean more births, which means, you guessed it, even more rabbits. It's that powerful engine of growth we saw with the E. coli.
And really, this brings us to the most important takeaway of this whole discussion. It's not just about finding these loops in isolation. The real magic happens when you realize how they work together. This quote says it all. Positive and negative feedback are the universal building blocks for all the behaviors we see in complex systems. It's that fundamental.
So, from now on, when you see a viral video explode online, or a market suddenly stabilize, or even just a project at work that somehow stays perfectly on track, I want you to ask yourself, what are the feedback loops at play here? What are the engines of growth, and what are the forces of balance that are shaping what I'm seeing?